good to have you here today. And we are in the midst of this series. It's 5 weeks long. We're in week 4, so we only got one more week of things Jesus never said. And the point of this series has been that to understand more fully what Jesus did say, sometimes it's good to hear what he didn't say. Kind of a lot of that in that video today. Jesus came today, or if Jesus was around today, he would not sound like, well, me. Or a lot of the mottos that we throw around in our culture in our time today. He would not sound like that at all. In fact, he would sound like he did then. Okay? So I know we're having a little... Connor, could you help with the sound for just a moment? Because it seems to be feeding back a bit, and it's a little distracting to me, so I'm sure it is for everyone else too. Maybe not, but anyway. All right. So, hey, before though we go into this series, I do want to introduce you to the next series that will start in 2 weeks from today with this little short video. So in 2 weeks, we're going to start tackling for about 4 weeks some really tough questions about life. And the first one is, why God, do you seem so hidden? Have you ever asked that question where it's like, wait a minute, why don't you just show up and let everybody see you? Why has nobody ever really seen you face to face? Do you understand? Why is it so tough to know where you are? So we're going to be asking those questions and working through that. But today we're looking at what Jesus didn't say. And that is, he didn't say this. Jesus didn't say, live your best life now. This is your best life now. Live your dreams. Unleash your full potential. Release your full potential. Buy material goods and make yourself happy. He didn't say that. Okay? You might hear that from some people. You might hear that from pop psychology or from even some preachers, but Jesus never said that. This is what he did say in the Sermon on the Mount. He said this, do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Tough words, but they are from the mouth of Jesus, and I think it's important for us to really get into this message today. Now, in a book, Defeating the Dragons by Stephen Iyer, he rightly identifies what's going on in our world today, and he says that there is a number of dragons that are attacking the church and attacking Christians and that are about this world, and he says the dragon of materialism leads us to become preoccupied with the material side of life. All our time, energy, and thoughts are focused in the physical aspects of life. We became practical atheists. We know that there is more to life, but the way we live shows that we have adopted the creed of the dragon of materialism, that matter is all that matters. If you look at most people, that's what their life is about. It just, whatever is in front of me, whatever is in this world, whatever I can get a hold of, whatever I can have, whatever I can get more of, that's all that matters, nothing else. Okay? Not all Christians have fallen for this, but we all are tempted with it. And I know many times I go through my day and go like, what? Why am I just focused on stuff? Don't you? Like, wow, I'm really stressed out about this. Now in the church there's even a more pernicious thing that's been happening, and Gordon Fee nailed it, and that is where churches are now buying into the whole idea of the material world, into what some have called the prosperity gospel. Have you ever heard that term before? Okay. So he says, American Christianity is rapidly being infected by an insidious disease, a so-called wealth and health gospel. Although it has a very little of the character of the gospel in it, in its more brazen form, it simply says, serve God and get rich. In its more respectable but pernicious forms, it builds $15 million crystal cathedrals to the glory of affluent suburban Christianity. Yeah. Ouch. Right. Now, this morning we look at Thrive, we look at ourselves, we look at our lives, and we go like, that's not us. We can just throw that off. Yeah, I can always compare myself to somebody who's doing a worse job of things, can't you? I can always compare myself to somebody who seems so much more greedy, so much more this, so much more that, but that's not the comparison I need to make today. And we're looking at Jesus' words today, and what he has to say. And they're jarring in some ways to the way I live my life. But even if I would compare myself not to Jesus and his words, but I just go back like 50 years. Do you know how different expectations were about life then? Timothy Keller, pastor in Manhattan, I think he's retired now, but in New York he says this, Americans of 40 years ago would be shocked to see what Christians today think of as necessities. But we view things this way because we keep defining basics the way the consumer capitalist culture wants us to, which is always being defined upward and fast. That hurts a little more to me. Because I look at what I grew up with to what I have today and what I want more of and what I think I have to have. And I grew up in a 1,000 square foot home, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, 5 of us. Would I ever want to live in that now? Isn't it amazing? What's changed? Man, we were happy. Well, not always with my brother and sister. But it's amazing what has changed. Well, today we're looking at Jesus' words, not even comparing ourselves to 40 years ago or 50 years ago or other people's expectations. We're going to look at what Jesus has to say in the passage we read before from the Sermon on the Mount. And we're going to learn 2 points today. First of all, we're going to look at the treasure principle. And the second point is the promised treasure. Now, you can follow along with all of this if you want to at the YouVersion of the Bible. We've got the app. And all the notes are there for this sermon, these points, these different quotes that I've already given, and the Bible passage itself. And you can take notes and kind of let it sink in through the week. So let's go back to the treasure principle. First of all, what is it? What do you mean, treasure principle? It's that everybody has a treasure. Everybody has a treasure. Jesus said it this way, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Everyone has a treasure. Your treasure is what you spend your time on. It's what you safeguard. It's what you work for. It's what you dream about, what you worry about, what you're concerned about, what you focus upon. It's what preoccupies you, mesmerizes you, enlivens you. It's what you identify with. It's what you want more of. It's what you can't imagine life without. That's your treasure. Dallas Willard said in his book, The Divine Conspiracy, everyone has treasures. This is an essential part of what it is to be human. To have nothing that one treasures is to be in a non-human condition, and nothing degrades people more than to scorn or destroy or deprive them of their treasures. Indeed, merely to pry into what one's treasures is a severe intrusion. So I'm intruding today. I realize that. I'm stepping on a few toes, and my own included. What are your treasures? What do I treasure? That's kind of the question. And you answer that question just by looking at what we talk about all the time. What preoccupies us. Or better yet, it's where my money goes. It's interesting how that works, isn't it? Check how you spend your money. If you want to know where my heart rests, it's where my money flows freely without even a second thought. It's just like, whoo, my pocketbook opens up and goes in this direction, no problem. That's where my treasure is. For example, let's say you personally, as a father or a mother, you don't like football, but your kid loves football and is a huge Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan. I have no idea why. Glutton for punishment, I guess. And so you want to take your child to a game, and it's like, I'm going to fulfill one of his dreams, her dreams. We're going to go to a Tampa Bay game, and then you get online and you look at the price of tickets, and your eyes just about pop out of your head, and you go, are you kidding me? That's how much one of those for a couple hours sitting there in the sun sweating to death, to watch a team to a game I don't even care about? Do you understand how that works? But you do it because you treasure your child. Now, on the other hand, if you're a huge baseball fan, right? And you go like, hey, spring training, no problem. I'm going to buy season tickets. Where are the hot dogs? Let's buy all the paraphernalia. It's no problem. Wherever your treasure is, whatever you treasure, whatever is your thing, money flows to that, no problems. Now, for me, it ain't sports, okay? I like to watch sports, but I won't pay for sports. Some people say, hey, John, you want to go golfing? And I have said 100 times over, I get my humility without having to pay for it. Do you understand? I wouldn't pay for it. I'll go with you, maybe, I'll caddy. I'll enjoy your company, but I won't enjoy the game. That's just not me. Now, I'm not having a problem with sports or anything necessarily. I'm just saying that's an example. For me, you know what's easy for me to spend money on? Books. Why? Because I like to look smart. The other thing, and some of you have been to the house, you can understand, cooking items. I love to host. I love to, so I went to Costco a couple weeks ago and they had a Dutch oven there and it was cheaper by $10 than what's on Amazon. And my wife goes like, yeah, I said, hey, I had to buy it, because it was a lot cheaper than Amazon. And it was 3 times cheaper than buying a Le Creuset one. And so this one will work. And it's like, she goes like, and you need it because, do you understand? But for me, money flows to that. Because that's what I love. That's what I identify with. So, for some of you, you might need to ask this question. Why does my money flow out of my pocket so easily to my appearance? What's going on there? Why is my body image so important, or what other people say about me? Why am I so anxiety-ridden about how I look and how I come across? And some of you might say, I don't spend money on anything. I put it in stocks and bonds, and I store it away, and I am frugal. And then I'm going to ask you the question of why don't you spend your money on others and give more money away? What are you seeking? Security? A future that you think you can control? Do you understand? Where your money is, there your heart is also. Where your treasure is, there your heart is also. Follow the money. That's the treasure principle, but what's really behind the treasure principle? And I think it comes down to one word, and we're just cutting to the chase. It's called worship. Worship. That's what's really behind anybody who has a treasure. To whom or what you give your heart, your focus, and your future, it's worship. John Piper had this to say, the inner essence of worship is the treasuring of God as infinitely valuable above everything. The outer forms of worship are the acts that show how much we treasure God. Therefore, all of life is meant to be worship, because God said, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, all of life, do it all to show how valuable the glory of God is to you. And that is why, at the beginning, I shared a little about what's called the prosperity gospel, because it is a false worship. Okay? Do you know what's going on there? I am using God to worship my real treasure, which is stuff. Blessings. And so God is not the focus of my life, but the stuff is, and God is just the way to get me that. He's the celestial Coke machine in the sky. and I put my prayers in, and out pops all the blessings I want. It's really all about me and my stuff that I'm worshiping. Here's an example of that. I'm not going to tell you what book it's from, but it's a quote directly out of one of these books. And it says this: God has already done everything He's going to do. The ball is now in your court. You want success, if you want wisdom, if you want to be prosperous and healthy, you're going to have to do more than meditate and believe. You must boldly declare words of faith and victory over yourself and your family. And tell me, what is God in that passage? What's the goal in that passage? God becomes a means to another end. My success, my wealth, my family, my stuff, my life, right now. It really reminds me of what Romans 1 says is the real human ailment that we all face. And that is, he says in Romans 1:25, Paul says, because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator. And anything else other than God that is worshipped or focused upon. So I use God to get this. That's what I'm worshiping then. Now hear me out. Jesus is not against money and stuff. He created this material world. He called it good. He is part and parcel of it. He became human himself. He had needs. He had them met. He loved and cared about people. He loves this created order. But he knows that money and material wealth can displace your real treasure so easily. The good can get in the way of the best, just like that, without even knowing about it. You see, money is good. It's just not God. Your marriage is good. It's just not God. Your work is good, but it is sure not God. Do you get it? So you can worship your marriage, or you can worship God through your marriage. You can worship your work, or you can worship God with your work. You can worship money and treasures, or you can worship God with your treasures. That's the difference Jesus is getting at. And Jesus warns, if I worship anything other than Himself and His kingdom as the treasure, I'm not only going to be disappointed, I'm going to lose it all. Lose it all. Moth and rust will destroy. Thieves will break in and steal. And I'll be left with nothing. But Jesus talks about in this text as well a promised treasure. He says there's one treasure where moth and rust cannot destroy, where thieves cannot break in and steal, something you cannot lose. That's what He wants you to focus your heart on and know about. And He shares this elsewhere in another parable that Jesus says in Matthew 13. He says, the kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and covered up. Then in his joy he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Do you realize the kingdom of heaven? God's kingdom, Jesus rule in your life, Jesus reigning in your life. Jesus is the king of that. He's the treasure that's worth everything. You know what you're looking for? What you're trying to gain by that stuff or that event or that thing that you're focusing your life on? You know, status or security or acceptance or identity or love? All those things are actually given to you freely by Jesus. You have them all when Christ is your treasure. Jesus is kind of saying in this whole section in the Sermon on the Mount, unless you have me as your treasure, I'm the only one. You will not be really rich. I'm the only currency that will never be devalued. And He doesn't say this easily. He doesn't say this out of egotism. He doesn't say this just to be right. He says this and puts His whole life behind it. Everything about Him. Jesus had all the treasure, all the beauty, all the glory, all the honor, all the love you could possibly ever have in that wonderful fellowship between Father, Son, and in the Spirit in eternity. Do you realize that? And yet, he gave that up. He set that aside and came to this world to find some treasure hidden here that he didn't have there. And that treasure is you. You are his treasure. You are his choice. You are what he sought after. When he says the kingdom of heaven is like a field in which a treasure was hidden, when somebody finds it, he sells all to get that. Jesus is the one who sells all, who gives up all, who bankrupts himself, who empties himself of everything, even his own very life upon that cross to gain you. You. Isn't that amazing?